Incessant oil and gas explosions and blowouts in the Niger Delta are a major cause for concern for environmentalists and inhabitants of the region. Besides the Nembe wellhead blowout last November and last week's explosion and sinking of a floating storage vessel operated by Shebah Exploration and Production Company Limited, SEPCOL, there are many more similar incidents that remain unreported in the Niger Delta. Not only do these incidents cause untold long-term damage to the environment, they impact negatively on the livelihoods of residents in the region and the Nigerian economy in general. Industry observers have blamed the incidents on a number of factors, ranging from sabotage and oil theft to aging oil and gas facilities that need to be decommissioned or replaced by oil companies operating in the area. Now joining us on a conversation on what the authorities and Niger Delta communities should be doing to address this problem is Maurice Alagoa, Project Officer and Head of the Niger Delta Resource Centre at Environmental Rights Action Friends of the Earth, Nigeria. Welcome to the show, Mr. Alagoa, and good morning.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Well, last year it was the issue of the blowout, they called it, on the Santa Barbara River involving Aitio company. This time around, there's another facility, an FPSO belonging to a company called Shebah. Why do you think these explosions continue to happen? And what's your assessment of the efforts of the relevant government agencies? A joint investigating committee just visited the facility belonging to SEPCOL, and then promises have been made. Do you think there will ever be an end to this, and how?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ruben, and I'm very happy for being here on air. Like you rightly mentioned during the intro, I'm happy to hear that some have been unreported, and that is the true picture of what is happening here in the Niger Delta. While they may report that of the ITO globally, they may report that of the Chevron gas explosion that occurred on the 16th of January 2012 globally, and this Shebah incident may also have added to the statistics globally of oil industry-induced incidents. Now, this is not just a matter of statistics. One thing I'm happy about is that the investigations have not told us, have not informed the public, though it's still ongoing. We have not heard that it was due to any attack. Unfortunately, 3 lives lost, 4 still missing, 3 have been reported alive. And like you mentioned, Dr. Ruben, the joint investigation has been carried out, and the authorities of the company, the company owners have said they will do immediate cleanup of the environment to ensure that the environment does not suffer from the impact of what happened. However, that is a promise of which I think the authorities, especially NOSDRA and other regulatory agencies like the State Ministries of Environment, should ensure with a proper follow-up that the environment is protected. Whatever is supposed to be done is done. And not just talking about carbon-related cleanup. The wreckage itself, that facility itself, needs to be removed from that location to ensure that it does not accept. They will refurbish it because that's an oil location site, except they will rebuild it. But to leave it like that will pose danger to other users of the sea. And so what is supposed to be done should be done. I'm talking, this is just adding to others that have happened. Like in 2017 or thereabout, corn oils until July caught fire off Sangana. And if not for the fact that community persons were on hand, in fact, a staff of Ajib, who was at home then, he's a firefighter, he went to the rescue of corn oil when all staffs have been evacuated. It went with some community folks to ensure that Auntie Julie was saved from this type of incident. It was a major fire, but the community people helped to rescue the facility, Auntie Julie. Now, even on this floating production and exploration Shebah platform, it was scary to hear that community folks rushed to the site with speedboats to see if they can see any person on the water to rescue. That was very commendable of community people. And this goes a long way to tell the Nigerian state that our people are not just the way they are described. Some see us as hostile, but we are not as hostile as that. People go to save facility and also to save lives. So these things are there. Just apart from Auntie Julie, Corn Oil's Ango Field Flow Station also caught fire about 3-4 years ago, maybe about 3 years ago. And because it was on land, the situation is worse when it's on water. The Auntie Julie was still on the sea, but people went with the speedboat to go and put it off. The Ango Field of Corn Oil was on land, and experts were flying in and out until they put the fire out. So this very one that just happened recently is very, very unfortunate that it happened. It's an accident, it's an industrial accident, and though the investigation is still ongoing, I just hope the needful will be done and lessons will be learned to ensure that they bring this to the barest minimum in the oil industry.
Thank you, Mr. Alagoa. That's a really important counter-narrative you just shared about how proactive the community locals are. You know, what's usually said, the accusation is usually sabotage. But I want to talk about another major environmental pollutant, which is not as prominent in the current conversation that we're having, and that is gas flaring. Nigeria signed on to the race for zero gas flaring by 2030. And President Muhammadu Buhari's administration was confident that we could achieve it by 2020. I mean, what's your take on how we've fared? I mean, I know there were some improvements, but what's your take on that aspect?
Yes, you know, the goalpost of bringing gas flaring to an end has been shifted over and over again. And gas flaring has been on illegally, right from 1985 or thereabouts, when the gas reinjection law was promulgated. And since then, they have been flaring gas illegally, and that was why fine is being paid every now and then. The oil companies, if at all, they are paying, and the 774 local governments, 36 states, Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, and the federal government, they are sharing the money from this gas flaring that is poisoning our people and the environment, and is also wasting the finite resource that is supposed to be used for domestic energy production or for export. And so this shifting in goalpost again, yes, I don't know whether it is realizable, but what I know is that the gas flares are still on seriously in the Niger Delta. Maybe 1 or 2 stations have put theirs off, but as I talk to you now, over 25 gas flare spots are still flaring here in Bayelsa State alone. So we look forward to see if they can walk the talk.
Well, very quickly, before we wrap this up, I would like to ask you, there are some people who have said these oil companies, whether foreign or indigenous, they don't care enough because the sanctions are very light. And when these explosions occur, either they claim force majeure or they come with lorry loads of bags of rice and other items for the communities. And the communities collect rice and they collect fish and they collect meat, and that's the end. Do you think that that's part of the problem?
Well, I will also put put this back to the federal government that owns over 60% of the share of the oil production contract. Look at a court pronouncement in 2005, November, where they say gas flaring should stop in a community called Eurekan Community, in a Jonah Gbemre versus Shell and the federal government. Judgment was delivered in favor of Jonah Gbemre and the Eurekan Community. Now, there was only one gas flare stack in that community when this judgment was passed. But today we have 3 or 4 gas flares stacked in the community in Delta State. And they did not obey the court order. For over 10 years, 15 years, it's only now Shell is appealing. And you can also recall that there are some judgments delivered in the country here for oil companies to pay compensation to community persons. None has been effected, but those that were pronounced overseas, in the UK or in the America, payments are being done. So I think the federal government also needs to do something about it, because they are in bed together with these oil companies. They provide security. They make sure some of us do not visit even the site. If not for our doggedness, it would have been difficult for some of these reports to even come to public. And that was why on the 9th of December last year, the civil society team led by Reverend Nemo Bassi that wanted to visit the ITO site to confirm if the oil well has been killed, they frustrated us. The security agencies and ITO frustrated our efforts. And Keo Briggs was there, and several professors were in the team. They did not allow us to access the site. So it is a culpability that must be put back on the table of the federal government. We need the authorities, both the regulators, NOSDRA, and the state ministers of environment, to do the needful to ensure that our people get environmental justice. So I agree with you that the oil companies are not doing what they ought to do, and that is because there is regulatory capture in this country. NOSDRA is not properly funded. The state ministries of environment are not properly funded. They depend on these oil companies to lead them to site, to give them logistics. So how can they do the needful? They say he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So these are some of the issues we have in the Niger Delta. And I'm happy that crude oil is being found in other parts of the country. And we'll see whether what is happening here in the Niger Delta was just being cooked up or not. That is the issue.
Thank you. That Bemre case was so monumental that the court held that environmental pollution is actually unconstitutional and just is a violation of people's rights to life and dignity. It is that much of a fundamental issue. But what do you think about the suspension now of the Petroleum Industry Act, given how long it actually took to get the president's assent, given the uphill battle, given the dissatisfaction in a lot of the host communities with regards to its provisions, and now it's been suspended?
I think the suspension shouldn't be just one-sided. If the federal government has reasons for putting it on hold, they should also keep it open for amendment, because there are areas where our people are not satisfied. They should keep it open for inputs by our people. If it is a law that is supposed to have taken effect and they are saying they are putting it on hold for more than a year, maybe when even Mr. President would no more be there, I think it is not justified, except it is leaving the opportunities open for our people to make inputs, for stakeholders to make inputs, as our people have been agitating that it is not holistic enough, it is not beneficial to our people, and that even the 3% is not enough. We are talking about 10% or thereabout, because even the 13%, that is coming to the oil-bearing community, the states, are not getting to most of the oil-producing communities. You go to oil-producing communities, you hardly see government presence. You hardly see government presence, and that's why you see protests here and there, protesting against the oil companies. I do not support these endless protests against the oil companies. Communities should begin to hold their state governments to account, because 13% is coming to all these Niger Delta states, and you don't see any government presence in oil-producing communities. It is very sad, unacceptable, and unfortunate. So communities should begin to do the needful, because if you go to some communities, you will see oil company presence in form of projects. They go into MOU with communities. Chevron has KFS communities that they have annual MOU with. You go to Delta State, the same thing. Chevron has MOU with communities. Shell also have, and they are doing it. If you go to some communities, you see concrete roads, you see jetties, you see lights, giant generators. These are provided by the oil companies, even though they are not enough. Several of them are still not having anything. So the government should do the needful with the 13%, while we also insist that the petroleum industry bill be reviewed to ensure that the percentage for oil-bearing communities is jacked up.
Well, one more question from me before we go. I see the efforts that your groups like yours are making to draw attention to the major issues. But what's the level of cooperation that you get from both the oil companies and also government agencies? And I ask that question because you recall when we were discussing NDDC, sometimes earlier last year, I think one of our guests on this program said, look, NGOs working on the environment and Niger Delta issues are part of the problem, that they are also contractors. Is that true? And somebody came on the program and showed us a list of how much they pay the NGOs on a regular basis. And the man told us, don't trust these NGOs.
That is good. We have some NGOs that are called NGIs, non-governmental individuals. We have some that are unprincipled. In environmental rights action, we have a philosophy of not even meeting with the oil companies. We don't even attend programs, events, organized or sponsored by any oil company. We do not sit with them on the same table. We meet them on the media, in the internet, on the pages of newspaper, on radio, or on television. That is a philosophy that environmental rights action has held very high, and we keep on to it. So, though, in every 12, they say there is a Judas. So we have those that are in NGO business. Some of them are even floated by the oil company persons. Some of them, their wives are opening these NGOs to also do the type of advocacy that we are doing, and they compromise. So it is not a strange thing. It happens. But then, the cooperation we have sometimes with the authorities, maybe the State Ministry of Environment, sometimes they invite us when they are having programs and we go and make presentations or even support to advocate for what they are doing. NOSRA, yes, we relate. We even organize training programs sometimes for them and also invite them to our program to also train some people or to throw light on certain areas. Now, I tell you one thing. There was a report that a particular site that Shell claimed they have cleaned up over the years. Somebody went to do a fish pond around the area, and as the excavator was digging, they stumbled on crude oil, very thick, serious crude oil. When they informed us, we went there and dug a fresh area, and we saw crude oil. And we put our report in the public domain. NOSRA saw it, invited me that we have seen your report, we will call Shell and we'll go back to that community and investigate. And actually, on a particular day, NOSRA called me and said, Mr. Morris, Shell is in our office. Come now, let us go to a Ikarama community. I was happy. We went. The security agencies were there. Shell staff were there. NOSRA were there. We dug. We cleared very fresh places, dug. And then right before Shell and NOSRA, we saw crude oil in the ground. That is one thing. So that type of collaboration is very, very cordial, and I like it, even though we are still somehow independent. There was a day NOSRA called me, why didn't you consult us before you go on air? I warned him. I warned the man. I said, stop that. I'm not an oil company that you control. I am an NGO person. Don't talk to me like that next time. And I think since then he is giving me my way. Yes. So we have that type of relationship. We make sure you maintain your own distance, I maintain my own distance. When I hear of spill, like the one that happened recently at Corn Oil's Ango field, just on the 31st of last month, January 2022, I had to call NOSRA. Have you heard about this? They confirmed to me they've heard that from Abuja they called them to ask them about it. I called the Ministry of Environment. I said, have you heard about this? They say, yes, they've heard. So that type of relationship is there, even though they don't call me, they don't call us to inform us, but we do call to inform them sometimes. So we have a kind of a relationship.
Thank you very much, Maurice Alagoa, for joining us this morning on The Morning Show and for your insight.